Warning, this video discusses emotional abuse of children by parents. In my late teens, I worked at Joann Fabrics. Somehow, I didn't yet realize I was queer. I hit it off with a coworker in her 20s, and we exchanged contact info. Later, she gave me a call. This was back when people made calls. We had another great conversation, and afterward I got an email from my coworker's younger sister, who was my age. This was back when people sent emails. My coworker's sister introduced herself and talked about her interests, like horses. My coworker was probably trying to make a match between me and her sister, and where better to find a date for your straight sister than Joann Fabrics? I was really excited about the email, but I made one critical mistake. I showed the email to my mom, who told me, "That girl sounds annoying." That's all it took for me to not reply to the email. I never again heard from my coworker's sister, and my coworker and I never again talked about her sister. Maybe I should have replied to my coworker's sister's email and said, "Sorry, I've already got a girlfriend." My mom! Although I didn't realize it at the time, I was suffering from spousification, which is when a parent treats their kid like their spouse. I was more than my mom's kid. I was her confidant, her protector, one of her closest friends. Mom had me watch her favorite old movies with her, brought me to work and errands even after I got old enough to stay at home alone, and vented to me about all the jobs that she ended up getting fired from. By discouraging me from responding to my coworker's sister's email, Mom kept me from developing a close friendship or romantic relationship, which would have diverted some of my time and attention away from Mom. If that sounds creepy and bad, that's because it is. Spousification is one type of boundary dissolution, or a breakdown of boundaries and loss of psychological distinctiveness, especially between a parent and a child. Other types of boundary dissolution include enmeshment and parentification. Spousification and parentification are types of parent-child role reversal or parent-child role confusion. Although enmeshment, parentification, and spousification can start or continue happening in adulthood, when any of them happens to a minor, it's an example of adultification. That's when a child is perceived and treated by adults and institutions as being older, more knowledgeable, or more responsible than they are. Since I wanted to be treated as an adult even more than the average kid, I was as vulnerable to adultification as I was to junk food. Enmeshment refers to relationships that have become so intertwined that boundaries are non-existent or identical. While this concept most often occurs between a primary caregiver and their child, it can also happen in romantic relationships. That explains why, after Mom got Alzheimer's, I stopped being enmeshed with her and finally did the healthy thing, getting enmeshed with crushes instead. Parentification happens when a child takes on the role of a parent for a sibling and or their own parent. There's emotional parentification, which includes, say, acting as a parent's therapist, and there's instrumental parentification, which includes, say, changing a sibling's diaper. Luckily, I didn't have siblings to take care of since I was an only child. My parents got it right the first time. Finally, there's spousification, also known as surrogate spouse syndrome, covert incest, or emotional incest. Examples of spousification include a parent depending on their kid for emotional support, taking their kid to events as a date or plus one, and in my mom's case, sabotaging their kids' attempts to make new friends or significant others. Spousification is most commonly associated with single parents. For instance, when one parent has died, or two parents have divorced or separated, or were never married to each other in the first place. Like mine, I'm a bastard. That said, spousification can happen anytime there is a parent with unmet emotional needs, including, but not limited to, when one parent has alcohol use disorder, another substance use disorder, or another illness or disability, or is neglectful, abusive, emotionally unavailable, or frequently working or otherwise absent. Perfect example, the comedian Pete Holmes was very close to his mom, because his dad was too emotionally distant to be the spouse whom Pete's mom needed. Pete made a show called Crashing, where he played a semi-fictionalized version of himself. In one episode, Pete's mom sits on his lap until Pete's dad tells her to give Pete a little space. That was based on a true story, only in real life, Pete's mom didn't get off his lap. At the time, Pete thought, why would I move her off? She's my mama. Another executive producer of the show, Judd Apatow, told Pete they had to tone down that true story because it was, quote, too effing weird. In that and other cases of spousification, the parent substitutes their kid for their desired spouse, not realizing the danger. Spousification is an unsustainable solution for a parent's loneliness. More importantly, spousification can damage kids in various serious ways. To quote Dr. October Boyles, these children become overly attuned to others' emotional states while disconnecting from their own needs. Many report feeling robbed of their childhood and experience profound confusion about their identity and role. Parentified adults who experience childhood spousification often become compulsive caregivers or fixers in relationships. They may attract emotionally unavailable partners, struggle to ask for help, or equate love with self-sacrifice. These patterns can lead to burnout, codependency, and difficulty maintaining equal partnerships. The internal message, "I am only valuable when I care for others," drives chronic guilt and low self-esteem. It's no wonder that for most of my life, I ended up with bosses, crushes, and significant others who gave me a huge sense of obligation, just like Mom used to make. If you think you might have been involved in spousification, whether as the parent/perpetrator or the kid/survivor, there are resources that you can turn to. Author Brett Sember recommends the following steps for parents, which could also be helpful for survivors: seeking therapy, creating healthy boundaries, reinforcing parent-child roles, developing your social circle, and improving your self-esteem. According to Dr. Bo A. Nelson, survivors of spousification could also benefit from acknowledging what happened to you and how it affected you, being aware of when you seek validation from others, recognizing that your worth isn't tied to taking care of others, and identifying and meeting your own needs, even if it feels uncomfortable. Most importantly, remember you're not alone, and it's not your fault. I want to make a few caveats. First, the existence of spousification doesn't mean that divorce, separation, or single parenthood are necessarily bad. My mom wasn't abusive because she was single. She was abusive because she was so abrasive that she pushed people away and relied on me as one of her few remaining friends. Also, the main reason why moms are usually the ones blamed for childhood trauma is that moms are usually the ones burdened with raising kids. If more dads did their fair share of parenting, they'd end up making their fair share of mistakes. Sometimes, dads even actively make spousification worse. Like when I was a kid, my mom's dad died, and my dad told me, "I need you to be a big man for your mom." More broadly, the main reason why moms are usually the ones blamed for childhood trauma is sexism. Often, moms suffer from matrilineal trauma, yet they're punished for showing any kind of weakness or emotion, and are expected to raise kids, do it all, and be perfect parents. When you learn about what happened to BoJack Horseman's mom, it's understandable that she's so awful that he called moms soulless succubi born fully formed from the ass of Satan. That said, just as it's problematic to blame moms too much, it's also problematic to honor moms too much. In her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, author and former child actor Jeanette McCurdy wrote, "No one but moms knows the hardship of motherhood, and we non-moms must heap nothing but praise upon moms, because we lowly, pitiful non-moms are mere peasants compared to the goddesses we call mothers." Maybe I feel this way now because I viewed my mom that way for so long. I had her up on a pedestal. And I now know how detrimental that pedestal was to my well-being in life. That pedestal kept me stuck, emotionally stunted, living in fear, dependent, in a near-constant state of emotional pain, and without the tools to even identify that pain, let alone deal with it. I related to Jeanette's story because my mom also made me put her on a pedestal. After Mom got Alzheimer's, the pedestal remained, and I put other abusers on it. A big step in healing was finally smashing that pedestal and putting myself first for a change. And another step was to try to help others who have suffered from spousification, like I'm doing right now. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more. And remember, the first step towards solving a problem is acknowledging it.